lovelies. Oh, hi, lovelies. How are you doing today? We aren't letting, we aren't letting the interruption from yesterday bring us down. We're going to get back into it. We're going to have so much fun. I know this is like a completely different time than last time, but if we tried to play at the same time as last time, we would also get told off. So we're just living. We're just living with it, babes. But I hope you're all doing well today. I hope we're doing well. I'm pretty good. It's been nice. It's been rainy and a bit gloomy. Very good weather for this atmosphere. We've got a cat on the bed staring at me grumpily because I'm paying attention and talking to something that isn't her. She doesn't approve of my streaming. She isn't pleased with streaming. She thinks it's rude because I do something that doesn't involve her. But that's okay. We do so much for her. We can do stuff that are for us only sometimes. But I had a lot of fun last time, so I really want to have fun to get back into it, you know? And I'm very excited because I forgot. So I did forget that today is like Lesbian Visibility Day, so we're on brand, completely by accident. Granted, I am always on brand, as I am a lesbian. I would simply be on brand no matter what I did. But you know how it is. I had to say rah rah to the cat. She wanted to be rahed at. She gets quite silly when I get. She gets the funny energies when I'm hyper. She's quite a emotionally connected cat, emotionally influenced. When I'm in a good mood, she gets all silly Billy. She gets all silly. And she wants to run around and get rahed at. It's great fun. But yes, I hope you're all doing well today as well. Hope everyone's having a very good day. And I am very excited to get back into it. I am waiting for the ad to finish before we jump over to the game screen. Yes, I am. Oh, the cat has left us. We've got our first bot of the day. Excellent work, everyone. Very good. Shall we jump over to the lovely screen and get into it? So I did turn the sound down because on the starting soon screen it can be a bit noisy competing, but we'll turn it back on, don't you worry. There we go. Let's load our file. Here we are, we're back into it. The advertisement was small and easily overlooked. The black font hemmed in by a plain rectangular border. Other, like rectangles, populated the page, all slotting together like a giant tessellating pattern. Each rectangle bore more text, small and ant-like. In these rectangles, Letitia could spy any number of informational pieces. one about an exhibit at London's Horticultural Society, another on a newly opened theatre, and yet another about a valuable watch which had been found in Hyde Park last Wednesday. Please inquire at the Metropolitan Police Station. Many across London would doubtless take an interest in these myriad pieces, but Letitia hardly even saw these headlines. Like mayflies that throng the sticky August air, they failed to register. Wow, thanks for the kindness, Slyko. Thanks for the kindness. Incredible. Amazing. Champion of generosity right here. Her attention had been captured in its entirety by one particular advert which read thus: Governess wanted at Hatton Manor, Beeston, Yorkshire. We are seeking a lady of impeccable character with suitable past experience to tutor Miss Genevieve Langley. The governess must be comfortable and competent in the general day-to-day running of the schoolroom, with a proficiency in English, geography, history, etc. Musical and artistic accomplishments are a necessity, and she must be proficient in at least one foreign language, preferably French or Italian. Please address all inquiries to Miss Rowena Rye. Inquiries without an accompanying character reference will be discarded outright. Letitia read this advertisement twice over, then set it aside. Yes, it is Slacko. It's one of the fancy lesbian adventures. It's... Oh, he can't hear me. He just said he can't hear me because he's at work. So I have to write this out. Sorry, chat. Letitia read this advertisement twice over, then set it aside. She swallowed, then spoke aloud, to nobody in particular. Oh my. To her it seemed a symbol of divine providence. The advertisement had fallen into her lap quite suddenly, as a benediction might from a higher being. The timing was so perfect it might as well have been delivered to her from the Heavenly Father himself. A genuine miracle. Of course, Letitia was not arrogant enough to assume that God, in all his divine wisdom, would ever deign to send her a message. But there was something apocryphal about it. What else could it be, other than a sign? Letitia had prayed for help, and now here it was before her, a solution to her problems. These problems of Letitia's had swelled during the last 2 weeks as baking bread does, rising until it threatened to overspill its tin. Letitia's every waking hour had, since that encounter in Clara's sunlit bedroom, been devoted entirely to her young pupil. She thought of holding her and kissing her, and more besides. Those imaginings always came at first with flushes of pleasure, but it was a pleasure of a light, effervescent kind, which soon faded to guilt and disgust. Not at Clara for instigating such feelings within her, but at herself for entertaining such notions. Fearful of her own desires, flight was the only option available. It was all Letitia could think to do, to quell her own ardour. That was how Letitia came to sit at her desk, quill in hand, and pen a response to the advertisement. She wrote slowly, careful not to spill any ink, and as she did, she tried not to think of Clara, whom she would be leaving, but of Hatton Manor and the Langley family, and of the mysterious Genevieve. Genevieve was a pretty name for a young girl. It sounded Arthurian almost. Maybe her father was some sort of scholar. Letitia doubted, however, that this Genevieve would match her romantic name. Girls crowned with the most beautiful names rarely rose to meet their parents' lofty expectations. She would probably be a plain, shy thing with tightly woven plaits and dark, disagreeable eyes. Genevieve's exact age hadn't been mentioned in the advertisement. Letitia had already placed her at about 5, 6, maybe 7. That was the age when young girls took governesses, and the advertisement hadn't mentioned anything about her having any previous tutorship. The advertisement hadn't mentioned where exactly Hatton Manor was either. Letitia only knew that it was in Yorkshire. Letitia had never heard of Hatton Manor before, nor of the Langley family, but she had heard of Yorkshire. She knew it was located a good 200 miles north of London, a county comprised almost entirely of countryside with only a few larger settlements interspaced among the fields and fens. Hatton Manor sounded like an isolated sort of place, but that suited Letitia perfectly. If she was in Yorkshire, she would no longer be able to see Clara. She would still think about Clara, of course. That much was inevitable. But perhaps her face would fade in time, becoming dull and grey as the months slipped by. Soon, Letitia would forget the thrill of Clara's bird-like laughter and the shocking intensity of her big brown eyes. She would forget, too, her own sinful designs on Clara's body. How could she continue to lust after her if she could not see her? It would be like desiring a ghost. That was what Clara had to become, if Letitia was to have any hope of repentance. She was not, Letitia told herself as she worked on her letter, running away. This was no act of cowardice. How could it be when her heart stung so with each stroke of her quill? She did not want to leave Clara. She did not particularly want to leave Lady Mortimer either, or her comfortable, well-paying position in the largest city in Europe. No other woman in her position would have done what she was doing. They would have called her crazy. Who wanted to sequester themselves away in the countryside? It was an act of sacrifice born of love, for Clara's sake just as much as hers. Surely she was doing the right thing. Who could have faulted her for that? Before Letitia could post her letter, however, there was something she needed to do. She still needed that character reference from the Mortimers, and to attain it, she first had to hand in her notice. Letitia bit her lip, then scanned over the lines she'd written in her neat looping cursive. Her head was beginning to ache. How was she going to explain this to her mistress? She's so dramatic. Letitia spent an uneasy night wondering how exactly she would break the news to Lady Mortimer. She slept only a scant handful of hours, but she was still bidden to rise early for church the following morning. The time passed slowly, like molasses through a sieve. The church sermon seemed to drag for far longer than usual, and the reverend's voice was positively soporific. Letitia sat with the rest of the Mortimer family, her back straight as a poker, fingers digging into her thighs. She feared if she didn't remain diligent she might fall asleep. And what sort of impression would that make? Letitia was still Clara's governess, though she did not intend to be for much longer, and she had to look the part. She had no desire to be a poor influence on Clara, though she feared it was already too late for such worries. Letitia could look as pious as she pleased. It wouldn't change the myriad wicked thoughts within her head. Letitia had hoped to have a private word with Lady Mortimer after church, but it wasn't to be. The lady had a guest over, a friend from the parish, one Lady Franklin. and barging in on them while they sipped tea and ate ladyfingers was unthinkable. This being the case, Letitia was obliged to spool away the hours as best she could until Lady Franklin's departure. She retreated to her bedroom, wherein she read the letter of application she had written the day before, until... Letty! Her door opened and Clara stepped in, beaming brightly. She hadn't bothered to knock, but perhaps she did not think she needed to. Clara was polite to her elders and betters, but she no longer regarded Letitia as such. Letitia wasn't just her governess, she was her friend. It's ever such a nice day outside. Would you like to go for a walk in the park? I need some airing out after spending all that time in church. Reverend Pyatt's sermons are awfully dull. Clara! Letitia scolded Clara, her arm ringed about her letter like a harbour wall. You shouldn't say such things, it's unchristian. You say that, Letty, but I saw you nodding off during the sermon. It was all you could do to keep your eyes open. Letitia's face coloured. She bit her lip. Was it so very obvious? It wasn't that obvious, I think. At least that was a silver lining. I can only tell these things because I know you so very well. We've been together for years now. You can't hide anything from me. Clara's eyes sparkled like gems. Her gaze was disconcerting, and Letitia soon found she had to look away. She had done her best to be discreet over the last 2 weeks, but what if it wasn't enough? Just how much did Clara know? Could she see how her breath hitched when their bodies drew closer? What if she could discern too all of her most pernicious thoughts? What if... Letty! All of a sudden, Clara was at Letitia's side. She leant forward, her chin hovering above Letitia's shoulder, their bodies perilously close. What is that on your desk? A letter? Why are you trying to hide it from me? Oh, for goodness sake, Clara. Letitia snapped in response, her face full of fury. Can't you mind your own business for once in your life? This has nothing to do with you. This was a lie, of course. The letter had everything to do with Clara, but Letitia could hardly tell her that. Apologies, everyone. A cat has entered the room. It's vital when a cat yells at you for pats that you give them pats. She's purposely sitting incredibly far away from me. But if I get out of the chair, she will run out of the room expecting me to follow her, and I can't do that. She's very needy when I stream. We love her. We love her dearly. I might as well have a drink while I'm at it. Much better. Trembling, Letitia took the letter from her desk and stuffed it inside a drawer. She had laboured long and hard over that missive, but now she cared not if she crumpled it. It seemed vastly more important that she hide it from Clara's inquisitive gaze. Letty? Clara took a step back. She looked at her governess askance, her brow furrowed with a concern so palpable it made Letitia wince. What's wrong? I didn't upset you, did I? You haven't upset me, it's just... I would like to be on my own for a while. Couldn't you entertain yourself elsewhere? What? But why? We almost always spend Sundays together. Then spending one Sunday apart surely should hardly hurt. Clara's pretty face fell at this. She looked devastated, like one who had witnessed the death of a beloved pet. Oh, but I must have done something to upset you. You're not usually this short with me. You're imagining things. No, I'm not. I know I'm not. You've been acting oddly ever since the day of Lady Marchbank's ball. You barely speak to me, even during our lessons, and you flinch whenever I touch you. You're acting like I have leprosy. So Clara had noticed. That didn't come as much of a surprise, but it still stung. Clara had done her best to hide her hurt from Letitia over the weeks, but it was painfully apparent that she was hurt. For all her earlier cheer, her eyes were starting to look suspiciously misty. Once more, Letitia wished she could sit Clara on her lap and kiss those encroaching tears away, but she suppressed the urge. That was all she'd done for the last 2 weeks. Now she was becoming quite adept in the art of self-denial. That was something else she could add to her application letter, which she would no doubt need to redo now. Is proficient with the piano, speaks French to a satisfying degree, can suppress all worldly desires and passions like a cold and unfeeling corpse. I assure you I've not been avoiding you. I've been distracted with a few things, that's all. The teacher groped for a suitable excuse. My family. My mother, to be precise, she's not been feeling well. Oh, I see. Clara blinked at this, her brown eyes wide. Her tears evaporated and was instead replaced with compassion. Clara's faith in Letitia was so pure and unquestioning, so uncorrupted, that it made Letitia feel ill. Is that what that letter was about? Yes, that's right. It was from my mother. She's been unwell for a while, but her condition has taken a turn for the worse. I'd rather look it over in private. Well, if it's about your mother, I quite understand. I'm sorry for bothering you. I hope she gets better soon. Yes, as do I. Clara left after this exchange, docile and obedient. Letitia supposed she should have been grateful about this, but the ease with which she'd lied to her young pupil stirred up nothing inside her heart save self-loathing. Lusting after Clara was bad enough, but now Letitia had deceit to add to her ever-expanding litany of sins. Oh, she's so dramatic. Oh no, she told a lie. She lied. She's going to hell now. Her mother, who incidentally was alive and well and living near Kensington, would have been ashamed. Letitia could only hope that lying to Lady Mortimer would be easier on her conscience than lying to Clara had been. It wasn't until Lady Franklin left at 3 o'clock, however, that Letitia was able to finally confront her kindly mistress. She found Lady Mortimer in the drawing room, embroidery hoop in her hand, though she set her needle aside when Letitia entered. Good afternoon, Miss Reed. It's unusual to see you here. Do you have something you wish to discuss with me? Yes, I do. I apologize for intruding, but this cannot wait. Now this does sound serious. Would you like to sit down? Oh, yes, please. Thank you. Letitia sat down in an armchair which faced her employer. The chair was a comfortable one, richly upholstered and strewn with cushions. It had obviously been made for the derrieres of the noble classes, but Letitia found she could not relax upon it. She sat on the edge of the chair, her posture tense, expression taut. A few seconds passed, denoted by the ticking of the carriage clock, but Letitia said nothing. This was such a complex knot to unpick. She wasn't sure where to begin. Miss Reed? Lady Mortimer prompted, her velvet voice heavy with concern. Are you all right? Yes, I'm fine. I'm sorry to worry you, it's just... Letitia surveyed her mistress forlornly, her fingers coiled upon her lap. Lady Mortimer was only 38, and she wore her years well. Her skin was smooth, her cheekbones high, her eyes deep and brown. She looked like Clara might in 2 decades' time. For the daughter was the very spit of the mother, 2 nesting dolls that could be stacked together. Lady Mortimer wore an olive dress with a high collar and long sleeves, though the weather was hardly cold enough to warrant such an ornate gown. The sky beyond the drawing room was clear and blue. Sunlight shone through the glass, catching in the crystal chandelier which hung from the ceiling. The Mortimers' drawing room was like a pleasant oasis. Located on the first floor, the windows faced out to Hyde Park. Letitia could see the boughs of trees beyond those windows, the leaves full and green, defiant in the face of the oncoming autumn. Clara had been right, and it really was a beautiful day. All of a sudden, Letitia wished she had taken Clara up on her earlier offer. If she had, they would be together now, luxuriating in the last of the summer sunshine. It had only been an hour since she had last seen Clara, but she already wished to see her again. It was an intense yearning, and it was this which spurred Letitia to speak. I saw an advertisement in the Morning Post yesterday. A family in Yorkshire are looking for a governess. I thought I might take them up on the offer. Silence fell, during which Letitia surveyed her mistress. The windows of the drawing room were closed, and she felt breathless for it, the air old and stale. What if she choked? I beg your pardon? It took Lady Mortimer a while to reply. When she did, it was with no small measure of reticence. The lady set her sewing hoop to one side, half embroidered with bluebells, and affixed her employee with a serious look. But are you serious about this, Miss Reed? Yes, I am. I've worked in this household for 4 years now. I need a change. And what has prompted this? Lady Mortimer's face crumpled in disappointment. Though she was 38, she looked just like her daughter when she did that. So soft and sensitive, she might have been a young girl. You've been such a good governess to our Clara, despite your young age. My husband was hesitant to hand you the job, but I talked him round. I knew you would be a perfect fit, and I was right. Clara obviously adores you. She's never taken to any of her other governesses like this before. You've been so immensely useful, I don't know what I'd do without you. Thank you, madame. Letitia wilted beneath the weight of these ill-deserved compliments. She could feel herself flushing. That was all she seemed to do lately. Her cheeks were almost perpetually red. She must have possessed an excess of blood. Could that be the culprit behind her sudden irrational emotions? Perhaps it was a course of leeches she needed, or a lancet. If only that could have restored her faculties. I thought you were happy working with us. We have given you all you could wish, or at the very least I believed we had. Have we been deficient in some manner? Not at all. I was very happy working for you and your family. Both you and your husband have been so good to me. I could not ask for more than you have already given me. Then why do you want to leave us? And so suddenly, too. Our Clara hasn't done something to offend you at all, has she? What? No! Letitius replied a little too quickly, her face burning even as she tried to deny her guilt. This isn't because of Clara or because of you. You've all been wonderful to me. Angelic, even. Please don't regard my decision as a slight against your family. Then what is the problem? Surely there must be one. I can't think of why else you would want to leave us to go to... Lady Mortimer frowned. Where did you say this new family is located? Yorkshire, madame. And why would anyone want to move from London to Yorkshire? The wages in London are much higher. And there's far more to see and do. London is a hub of activity, whereas Yorkshire... Lady Mortimer frowned. My sister lives in Yorkshire. I have been there before. I don't mean to speak ill of my own country, but it's a ghastly place. It's all fields and boggy marshlands. It gets cold in the winter months, and those manor houses are miles away from civilized society. You would be bored to death within a fortnight, if you're fortunate enough not to succumb to pneumonia first. I dare say you must be right, madame. You know more about these things than I. I know too that you will be unhappy if you go there. You must reconsider. I wish I could, madame, but at the present circumstances prevent me from doing so. What circumstances? Well, Letitia bit her lip. She knew if she was going to leave the family who had employed her for 4, almost 5 years, she had to furnish them with some manner of an excuse. It would have been cruel not to. Alas, she could hardly tell Lady Mortimer the real reason behind her hasty decision. Left with no other alternative, she was obliged to lie. She had lied once that day despite it being a Sunday, the day of the Lord. What was one more sin to add to her ever-growing collection? Letitia sat up a little straighter as she did, while attending Reverend Pyatt's sermons. She inhaled so as to gather her bearings, then said, My apologies, madame, but this is the decision I have made on behalf of my mother. She lives in Yorkshire herself, and... Letitia struggled to think of a suitable place. She had never been to Yorkshire herself, but she knew the names of some of its larger cities. None was so large, however, as London. Nothing upon God's green earth was. Harrogate, Letitia eventually said with a decisive nod of her head. Yes, Harrogate. My mother lives there all alone. Father died a few years prior. This was another lie. Letitia's father owned a greengrocer's, and he was quite well. The very picture, when Letitia had seen him last, of ruddy-faced health. Gosh, he just can't stop. She just keeps going. Oh my God, and I am her only daughter. I've been sending my mother my wages over the years, which was enough to sustain her, but now her health has taken a turn for the worse. I'm worried she might not live through this winter. I was hoping to find a new position closer to home so that I might visit her more easily should she need my help. My mother is the only family I have left. and I have to be there for her. Silence descended upon the telling of this tale. Lady Mortimer looked at Letitia. Her eyes narrowed. Was she perturbed, Letitia wondered, by her tale? Or did she disbelieve her? If Lady Mortimer did take issue with Letitia's gloomy account, she would have been quite correct in doing so. Almost everything which had passed Letitia's lips during the last 10 minutes had been fictitious. Had Letitia ever mentioned her mother to Lady Mortimer before? Did she know she lived in London? Letitia couldn't remember. She hoped if she had, that Lady Mortimer had forgotten, just as she had. Letitia stared at her mistress, willing her to swallow this lie. Until her relief, Lady Mortimer relented. The well-dressed lady clasped her hands together, her face heavy with emotion as she said, "Oh, you poor dear, I had no idea. Must be hard for you having to care for your ailing mother when you are still so very young." "It has been hard, yes. I'm doing all I can, but it's placing quite the burden on me." "I can only imagine. You must be so worried, you poor thing." "Well, I've no desire to add to your worries further, not with my selfish concerns. It wouldn't be right." "Then would you allow me to apply for this new position?" "But of course. I can hardly say no to you now, can I? I value you, not just as Clara's governess, but as a family friend of a kind. You have worked hard for us for many years, and I'll hate to see you go, of course, as I am sure will Clara, but—" Lady Mortimer offered Letitia a smile, hesitant though it was. "I will write you a character reference myself, without delay. I'll let this new family— what are they called? Did you mention their name?" "The Langleys, madame." "Then I shall let the Langleys know all about your merits. They shan't turn you down if I have any say in the matter, of that I can assure you." "Oh, madame, you're too good to me." "Not at all. This is the least I can do for you. I believe all hard work must be rewarded, though I hardly count being exiled to Yorkshire as a reward." Neither did Letitia, in all honesty, a virtue she had been sorely missing as of late. Still, it seemed better than the alternative. "Thank you for the follow, Dodo Z. Welcome in, welcome, welcome. It's nice to see you." Listening for over half an hour now while playing some Mahoya Santa. Oh, thank you, dear. That's lovely to say. I do love reading, and I have been enjoying this story, so I'm glad many people are enjoying it, listening to it too. If she was accepted as Genevieve's governess, which was beginning to seem more and more likely given Lady Mortimer's determination, she would no longer need to endure Clara's company. I have to say I don't know much about the Monster Hunter games, but I hope it's not kicking your ass too much. Letitia knew that being parted from Clara would hurt, but it was a hurt she would gladly welcome. If one wanted to heal a broken bone, they first had to pop it back into place. The initial pain would be harsh and explosive, but without that pain it would be quite impossible to recover from the aforementioned injury. Letitia was simply doing what she knew she had to do. It was the only method she could think of to stem her emotions before they quite consumed her. With Lady Mortimer's approval, Letitia hastened to post her letter to Hatton Manor. Lady Mortimer penned for Letitia a thorough character reference, in terms so glowing Letitia blushed upon reading it. She had never before known quite how much Lady Mortimer had valued her. Letitia did know, however, that she would be sorry to leave the Mortimer household. Not solely because of Clara, though this formed a large part of her sorrow, but because of Lady Mortimer's abundant kindness and generosity. She doubted that the lady at Hatton Manor, whoever she might be, would be half as considerate as Lady Mortimer. Letitia knew nothing of Hatton Manor's mistress. The advertisement in the Morning Post had been penned by Miss Rowena Ree, not a Lady Langley. It was unusual that a maid, even a housekeeper, who was of far more importance than a scullery drudge, had been the one to pen such a message. A missive, rather. Surely Lady Langley, whoever she was, would have preferred to select her daughter's governess at her own discretion. She should have been the one to dictate the list of accomplishments she was looking for, not Rowena Ree. Perhaps Lady Langley did not care for her daughter as Lady Mortimer cared for Clara. For all Letitia knew, she might have been a careless, feckless mother who visited London on the regular and ignored her child's needs. Did Lady Langley not care for Genevieve's education? Her future? Perhaps the mistress of Hatton Manor was searching not for a governess, but a glorified babysitter. Letitia was doubtful she would like any employer more than she did Lady Mortimer, but Lady Langley seemed a poor replacement indeed. As the days passed, Letitia began to wish that she would not be accepted for the position as Genevieve's governess. Then she would have no cause to leave London. She liked Lady Mortimer, adored Clara, and the prospect of saying farewell was excruciating. Letitia must have looked ill. She certainly felt it, because Clara was more reserved than per usual during her lessons. She inquired genially after Letitia's mother and whether she was doing better, and Letitia told her that things had still not improved. The prognosis was bleak. Letitia asked Abigail about the post every morning with conflicting feelings of hope and dread. Each time she turned away empty-handed. She was unsure whether or not to feel relieved. Each day without a letter was another day she could spend with Clara. Her time had not yet come. Perhaps it never would. Letitia spent those weeks in a state of bittersweet ignorance, her future hanging precariously in the brink. This shifted at the close of August, however, when the weather took a turn for the cooler. Abigail brought Letitia her breakfast at 7 o'clock sharp, as she had for the last 4 years. The meal rested on a tray, a bowl of warm porridge oats, thick and milky, and a glass of barley tea. That wasn't all on the tray, however. There was an envelope too, browner than an autumnal leaf, with Letitia's name and address written upon the front, in an elegant hand. "Is that for me?" If Abigail thought the question stupid, she did not show it. She only nodded, her face as serious as a gargoyle's. "Yes, miss. It's addressed to you. It came this morning." Abigail didn't have much of an imagination, unlike Sarah and Marjorie. Often the other two scullery maids would poke fun at her. Letitia would have felt sorry for Abigail, had Abigail not withstood their jibes with an unflinching countenance. The insults rolled right off her back. Maybe she was too dense to understand them. "I see." Letitia exhaled. She could feel her heart fluttering. "Please leave my tray on my bed. I'll read through the letter at my leisure." "As you will, miss." Abigail gave a laboured curtsy, then turned and walked off. Her movements had always struck Letitia as oddly stiff, as though she was made not of flesh and blood, but stone. Currently don't have to fight type monsters, farming jewels, which is a repetitive work done based on luck. Oh, the RNG mines! I know them well. They are not kind. Good luck to you. At least she would be one person in the Mortimer household she would not miss, should she move to Hatton Manor. If she moved to Hatton Manor. Had the enigmatic Miss Rye deemed her a worthy enough candidate to educate the young Miss Genevieve? Letitia sliced the envelope open with her fingernail, then turned it. A letter fell upon her breakfast tray, narrowly missing her bowl of porridge. Letitia picked it up, careful not to crease it. She unfolded it, smoothing between her fingers, and scanned it with her hazelnut eyes. She read it once. Then, as she had the advertisement in the Morning Post, she read it a second time, and a third after that. All the while, her heart hammered. Letitia hardly dared to believe the words written upon the page, in an elegant cursive. But no matter how she blinked, they did not waver. The ink did not reform itself upon the page, and neither did it disappear. This was the letter Letitia had been waiting for. It was from Hatton Manor, and it was signed by one Miss Rowena Rye, the housekeeper at Hatton. Letitia's days of agonizing indecision were finally at an end. With her new position confirmed, and the approval of Lady Mortimer granted, Letitia supposed she ought to have been happy. Once she moved to Hatton Manor, she would no longer be besieged with licentious desires. Desires which, for the sake of her own reputation and for Clara's, could never be consummated. Letitia was under no illusions that she would not continue to think of Clara, even during her sojourn to Hatton, every waking hour of the day and the sleeping hours of the night too. But thinking was always preferable to doing, particularly given how perverse her wants were. Freed from Clara's company, freed from her melodic laughter and her beguiling, nigh on irresistible blandishments, Letitia hoped that her feelings would begin to fade. Time, as she had heard it said, could heal all wounds. But as long as she remained by Clara's side, this would never come to pass. Letitia knew should they stay together, she would only continue to sicken, her thoughts sinking to even greater depths of depravity. It would not be long then until what little remained of Letitia's self-restraint snapped. Letitia imagined herself bridging the gap between herself and Clara during one of their sessions at the piano. She saw herself twining her fingers through her pupils as they rested upon the ivory keys. Saw too, as though in a trance, a dream, or else a nightmare, herself leaning forth to find Clara's pursed lips with those of her own. Those fantasies, and more like them, tormented Letitia with such intensity, she soon found it hard to look Clara in the eye. No, Letitia reasoned with herself, as stoutly as she was able. This would never stand. Moving to Hatton was for the best, both for herself and for Clara. She knew her feelings towards Clara were amoral, and to entertain them frightened her. Why, such feelings would have been inappropriate even if she had been a man, though slightly so, for she and Clara were not equals. Clara was her pupil, Letitia the teacher. Clara trusted Letitia, and Letitia did not wish to do anything to sever the goodwill that existed between them, which she had nurtured over the course of several years. She had known Clara for goodness' sake since she had been but a young sapling of a girl, only 12 years old, with awkward elbows, and a propensity for getting into mischief. If Letitia could not overcome her confused, convoluted feelings for Clara of her own accord, then fleeing seemed the only viable recourse she had. I'm doing this for Clara, Letitia muttered thus in her bed at night, when she found herself unable to sleep. If I love her, which I'm sure I do, then I must learn to let her go. This is for the best. This was what Clara tried to tell herself at least, but it was hard, painfully so, to make herself believe it when she saw how unusually baleful Clara looked during their lessons. Clara must have known something was awry, because the glances she levied towards her governess were full of concern, her brown eyes positively overflowing it. Letitia appreciated Clara's consideration, but still she found herself shrinking from it. She knew, afflicted with self-hatred as she was, that she did not truly deserve it. Letitia had intended to leave both London and the Mortimers with nary a word of farewell to her young pupil. She hadn't the heart, or so she thought, to witness Clara's sorrow. For knowing Clara as she did, Letitia was certain Clara would feel sorrow at her departure. Clara had known Letitia for so many years, they were less a pupil and her governess than a pair of sisters. Or perhaps Letitia liked to think, friends. Deprived of her company, which hitherto had been so steadfast, Letitia feared Clara might lose some of her spark, become wan, wave-faced and despondent. Hi, Tushy! Thank you for the look. It's lovely to know you're here. Ever the coward, Letitia had no desire to witness this. She did not want to know what her sudden goodbye would bring, for should Clara dissolve into tears, it seemed likely that she would no longer be able to go through with her plan. Letitia dithered helplessly for some weeks, unsure of what to do. Yet time as it did so relentlessly passed, and with it came Letitia's penultimate week in London. Soon she would leave the Mortimers' home for the final time, to commence her journey to Hatton. Clara did not yet know of Letitia's plans, for Lady Mortimer had not told her. Perhaps she was hoping Letitia, being as close to Clara as she was, would inform her of the bad news. This was a burden Letitia did not wish to bear, but things had grown so very staid and awkward in the schoolroom, she felt she no longer had any choice. Letitia could run from Clara, yes, but the same could not be said for her responsibilities. She was supposed to be an adult. As such, she could properly countenance her earlier plan, that of leaving without so much as a backwards glance afforded to her young, amenable pupil. To leave without saying goodbye might have been easier, for the sake of Letitia's fragile psyche. But what of Clara? How would so gross an abandonment make her feel? Clara's tears would not lose their value solely because Letitia was not there to witness them. The world, Letitia told herself, did not revolve around her. She was no solipsist. Solipsist. I don't know that word. Let's look it up. Oh, a person who is very self-centered or selfish. Okay. Other people had emotions. Emotions as turbulent, she fancied, as her own. And they mattered. You also like reading, but you have issues with novels? That's why I read manga, manhwa, talks, books about parasites. You also like parasites? Parasites are so good, aren't they? Parasites are so fun. I can't stop thinking about them. Clara mattered. Letitia did not want to make Clara cry. God, she could not bear the thought. But if Clara was to weep at their parting, surely it was best she do so in Letitia's company, so she might offer unto her some slivers of succour. If they were friends, Letitia reasoned, then that was what she ought to do. Consoling Clara was her duty. And so it was. Diplozoon paradoxium tattooed on my arm. Oh, I really want to get tattoos one day. I have pain issues, so I don't know if I could. But it sounds so cool. Oh, a flatworm! I don't know all the scientific names for things, but that's a really cool tattoo. That sounds awesome. And so it was. After much hand-wringing and worrying, Letitia could not do anything, or so it seemed, without first working herself into a frightful state. Letitia decided to inform Clara of her decision. Perhaps she had left it too late for Clara to come to terms with everything. But Letitia supposed that late was better than never. Not wanting to break the news within the confines of the Mortimer's home, where the maids might have been eavesdropping, particularly the sulky Abigail, Letitia proposed to Clara that they take a turn in Hyde Park. The summer months were nearly at their close, and though the weather was still pleasant enough, for the present at least, it would not last. Letitia wished to enjoy the last vestiges of the verdant greenery and the sunlight which warmed it, while she still could. That was what she said to Clara, at least, who, bored of languishing indoors with little to do save sewing, jumped at the opportunity. Together the pair quitted the Mortimer's red brick terrace and crossed the street, all lined with unlit lamps, to the park. As they walked, the sole of their shoes slapping in unison against the paving flags, Clara offered unto Letitia all manners of girlish prattle. It was not long before the promenading pair slipped through Hyde Park's impressive gates, to meander together through an avenue of leafy trees. The foliage which shifted about the pair was dense enough to blot out some of the sunlight, but several stubborn rays sneaked between the shifting leaves regardless, its greenish glow pooling on the ground in fractal patterns. The same gentle breeze which rocked the trees stirred Letitia's hair and the hem of her dark, sensible skirt. Letitia could see, among the boughs of said trees, squirrels cavorting. Their bushy tails quivered well, particularly obscured by the verdure. Birds twittered. It really was a pleasant day. Others, it seemed, had decided to take advantage of the fair weather, as Letitia had, for the park was fairly occupied with people. I'm glad you're enjoying the merch, Tushy. I'm so pleased that Carrie was open to working with me. I know she's in a really busy situation right now. Like, her life is really busy. But she was gracious enough to help me. And of course I paid her, obviously. We don't let friends work for free if we can help it. Yes, she did quite well with some of the really spooky ones. She's so, she had a lot of fun. She actually, I'm in her server, and she has been posting some emote base ideas she has, because she had so much fun that she wants to use those bases for future emote commissions that she wants to do. So if you're interested in seeing more of her and her work, I would recommend popping by her Twitch and just jumping into the Discord and seeing her lovely work in progresses and all those sorts of things. She posted a lot of them. How much what? Are you wanting to know how much Carrie charged for the 12 emotes? I don't know if she gave me a friend discount, I will say that. I hope she didn't. We don't do that. I don't like friend discounts. For 12 emotes, it was 120 USD. Just for static emotes. I don't know if she does animated emotes. She's usually doing emotes in general. She's only done Banshee's emotes and mine, as far as I'm aware. But yeah, she does great work. And I would keep an eye on her and see when she opens commissions in the future, because she's lovely. She's lovely. I've got I've got a friend commission that is being worked on for her as well. She's in the friend commission series. Thank you for using your sorry, Dodo. I know. I know it's I would turn off ads if I could live without the extra money, but I do kind of need to turn it into my life. I'm trying to be professional and use the ads for my to supplement my living. So thank you very much for using your Prime subscription. I don't have Prime. It you only get one of those, don't you? That's a huge deal. Thank you very much. That's a huge kindness. You only had one of those you could use, and you used it on my channel. That's incredible. Very sweet. Thank you, love. But yeah, we could take a minute to discuss what I'm working on behind the scenes. I'm looking at artists for sub badges as well. I want to get a good thumbnail art progress sort of system going. I'm planning to get for the visual novel streams, I might use the reading art I showed you, Tushy, for the thumbnails, but for other game ones I was thinking about getting another art piece made just with me holding a controller or something, just to go with the gaming vibe, and then we would use a frame and a background of the game, things like that, which is very generic, because I know that having custom thumbnails and not just a snapshot from the video helps a lot with clickability on YouTube. I need to figure that out. I'm also working on teaching myself some graphic design, because I have some infographics I want to make in the future for Twitter for various subjects, disability, stuff about my personal condition, environmental stuff. I'm very big into environmental work. I don't do it myself because I can't, but I'm very passionate about it. Just whatever pops into my mind. The current one, the number one I want to make once I figure out how to do graphic design, I will be making an infographic on the dignity of risk, which I talked to Tushy about a while back, and I realized it's not as well known as I thought it was. So I'd like to bring that knowledge to more people, because it's a huge deal. It's a huge thing, and it's very important to me. Um, what else? I've been doing some background research for some of my education streams I've discussed in the past, where we just go in deep dives on various subjects. I don't want to just jump in and be like lost at doing it. I want to have some focus and direction that I'm taking all the viewers on. I want to feel like I am driving the bus. I'm not swerving into the into the gutters and things. I know what I'm doing with directing the education streams. I'm going to be getting a whiteboard app to use for it and various other things. We will get back to reading Carmilla as well. I've just been getting back into the groove of things. You missed it, Dodo. I kind of was not massively popular when I started, but I did get overwhelmed by the amount of support I had when I started, and I got a bit stressed. So I had a break quite soon after I started. And I'm just come back. And I haven't been doing schedules quite yet. I'm taking my time. But I do have schedules I can make. If you want to keep up to date on all my various things, my Twitter is on my channel. It's available. What else? I won't be doing anything Christmas themed on this channel. I'm not personally a Christmas person. It's not my thing. It actually makes me quite uncomfortable. But we will be having streams around that time for a couple of days around Christmas and on Christmas, where we just let people escape from family members and such. Just let people breathe. Just have a space where we can not talk about Christmas and do stuff that isn't that. And I think that'll be really nice. It will be like a taboo word on those streams. We don't discuss it at all. And I think that'll be quite nice. I know there's like people who like to vent about Christmas during those streams, but I think it's good to have spaces where we don't even think about it during that time of year. It's healthy for people who need that. And I think that'll be really good. We're not going to do anything crazy. We'll probably play something like Supermarket Simulator, just some silly things like that. Some mindless stuff, chatting about whatever. I might do it in the cafe Discord, and people can just pop in and out as they please. If anyone knows of Wayne Radio TV, when he does streams, he has his friends Discord. That's fine, Tushy. You play whatever you like. This is just what I'm doing. You live your dream. He has his friends Discord where he and his friends are in, and he'll just like all of the others, everyone else streams in there, and whenever he wants to let people just hop in and out of stream and hang out, he streams in there, and his friends pop in and out whenever they can. And I thought I could do that for the Christmas ones, so it had a bit of a camaraderie feeling. And I thought we could do that in the cafe Discord or something like that. I am planning to set up a Discord in the future, but I have a lot of other things to do. I don't think I'm really big enough to need one yet anyway. What else? Is there anything else? Tushy, you're very excited about the idea of a Discord by me, but you know me, I'm a perfectionist. I'd want to have like someone design a Flash one and make it so pretty and professional looking. Like, it would not just be a basic Discord. It would take me a lot more work and time to get done. I would need to make plans about what I'd want. My perfectionism would halt the process much more than it would other people. I do love just jumping into things like today with this stream has been very good for that, but you know how it is. I like I won't lie, Dodo. I am working as streamer. This is a job to me. I enjoy it, but it is a job to me. And I want to make it good. A good job. So I'm being very big about it in my head. But shall we get back to the story now? I've gnashed on about plans and things for a minute. But we can get back to things. Couples walked together arm in arm, while street painters plied their trades and young children capered about by the duck pond. Invigorated perhaps by the sunlight and her close proximity to Letitia, Clara continued to talk. She spoke of the numerous balls her parents wished for her to attend, and of Lucy, one of her closest friends, who had received the loveliest peach-coloured gown for her birthday, and of Marjorie the maid, who she had caught sneaking sugar cookies behind the cook's back. Lovely gossiping. I forgot about this piece. Oh, it's so beautiful. Oh my god. Look how beautiful it is, guys. Oh my goodness. Whew. Overwhelmed by beauty for a moment, don't mind me. Oh, don't tell Mother about that though, Clara said, her brown eyes. Yes, it's a visual novel. It's a visual novel by the wonderful Ebihime. She's so good. I'm like a mega fan. She's a big deal to me. She's so good. I will say she has a lot of really toxic stories. Like that fucked up shit. Jump into them being aware of that if you're going to try out her works. Toshi, thank you for the biddies. Very kind, very kind. What is the heart doing? Oh, there's a unicorn. Oh, I thought it was a tongue. But yeah, I've been a mega fan of Ebihime for so many years. I recommend her works, but I also say be so fucking careful, babes. Clara said, her brown eyes wide with unselfish alarm, as she and Letitia settled down upon a bench. Their favourite, in fact, which was situated in a secluded area of the park beneath the boughs of a stately oak tree. Yes, we love toxic stories, Tushi. The more horror the better. We like to see people just going through it. Just absolutely going through it. I don't want Marjorie getting into any trouble. She only took 1 or 2 biscuits, and anyway, I can't blame her. The cook's baking is awfully good. It is, isn't it? Letitia spoke thus, smiling despite herself. I suppose I shall miss it after I... Here, however, Letitia found continuing quite impossible. Clara did not yet know of her plans to leave, but soon, Letitia wagered, she would. First, she needed only to gather the requisite courage to confide in her. Oh God, why did everything have to be so very taxing? Letty? Clara looked at Letitia askance, concerned by this remark, and said, What will you miss? You aren't going anywhere, are you? This would have been a perfect opportunity to tell Clara of her intentions, but Letitia found herself struck dumb. She opened her mouth, meaning to respond, yet no words came out. She did not know what to say. Abashed, how could she be so very awkward? She was a grown woman. Letitia shook her head and instead said, "Let us not speak on that matter quite yet. Why, we have only just arrived in the park. I would hate for us to spoil our day out already." "Well, all right," Clara demurred after a pause. "I won't harp on it. Mother is forever telling me that it's unladylike to ask too many questions. But Letty—" Clara shifted closer to her governess, then took Letitia's hand in her own. "You will tell me if there is something the matter, won't you? You've been acting oddly for many weeks now, and I'm worried about you. I can't stand to think of you suffering not on your own. If you have any need to confide in anybody, you can always tell me." "Clara." Letitia felt something shift in her throat, a lump of sentiment perhaps, and her eyes stinging, swallowed it. "That is very good of you, but you are forgetting our positions. I am your governess. I ought to be the one looking after you. I'm far older than you are." "Older, yes. But wiser?" Clara's eyes sparkled with amusement. "Sometimes I wonder about that." "And what do you mean by that, you saucy baggage, you?" "Only that you always make yourself anxious. I know you well enough that I can state this quite confidently." "Goodness. To think that I would need to be consoled by my own pupil. How in the world did it come to this? Your mother would be most disappointed in me." "No, she wouldn't." Clara consoled Letitia while giving her captive hand a squeeze. "Mother would do no such thing. She likes you, you know, Letty, and I like you too. I only wish you could like yourself more." Letitia knew Clara meant well by her words, but she had to fight to stop herself from snorting in self-derision all the same. "Yes, Tushy, this is so fucking gay. These bitches are gay. Good for them. They are going to behave so terribly about it. They are not going to be smart about it. They're going to mess this shit up." How could she ever hope to like herself when her heart was so very heavy with such a vast array of unseemly desires? To like herself, despite her many failings, would seem tantamount to accepting these failings, which was something Letitia knew she could not afford to do. She could not allow herself to be content with her own wickedness, otherwise it would consume her. "You are very sweet, Clara," Letitia managed after a pause, despite the lump in her throat which stubbornly refused to shift. "But I fear you wouldn't continue to think as highly of me as you do, if only you knew what was on my mind." "Letty?" Clara tilted her head askance, her brown eyes wide with wonder. "What is it? Won't you tell me what's troubling you?" "That is... Letitia opened her mouth, yet once more she found herself lost for words. The look upon Clara's face, earnest and trusting, and so very innocent, was enough to rend her heart in two. What would Clara have said, Letitia wondered, if she knew of all the illicit thoughts she had entertained, night after night in her bedroom? How would she have reacted were she to ever learn of how ardently Letitia wished to press their bodies together? Letitia could picture Clara's reaction well enough in her mind's eye, though she hoped most earnestly she would never see such a scene transposed upon reality. "Yeah, Tushy, these bitches gay. They're very fucking gay. We're not just talking about kissing and hand-holding in these games. We get into it." The Clara in Letitia's imaginings, just as fresh-faced and lovely as the one set before her, would crumple like an overwatered flower. Yeah, she wanna fuck. She wants to, ardently. Frightened, she would shrink back, and surely she should cry, "How could you? I trusted you. I thought you were my friend, my dear darling confidant. Yet all the time you tricked me. I feel like I don't even know you." The real Clara, however, did not know of Letitia's innermost thoughts, so did not think to pull away. She did not even entertain the notion. Instead, she leant in closer, if such a thing were possible, and squeezing Letitia's fingers said, "Will you not confide in me, please? I'm worried about you." "Oh, Clara." Letitia let her pupil's name fall from her lips, two softly spoken syllables full of yearning, with a sigh. "Did you not tell me only a few minutes prior that you wouldn't pry?" "Perhaps I did, but how can I not when it's so obvious something's the matter? As your friend, I think I've a right to know what that something is." "I am your governess, not your friend. But you do, I suppose, have a right to know what's on your mind, what is on my mind. It pertains to you, after all." "In what matter?" Clara's brow furrowed. "I've not done anything to upset you, have I?" "No, you have not. Perish the thought. I doubt you could upset me if you tried, though that is by no means an invitation. That's not the problem. You're not a problem." "But there is a problem." "Well, Letitia cleared her throat in an attempt to regain some control over her emotions. She could not afford to go to pieces herself, no matter how she shivered. She wanted to appear strong while saying goodbye to Clara at the very least. Clara, as the youngest between them, still a slip of a girl, little more than a child, could be excused her excessive emotions. Letitia, meanwhile, could not. Leaving her so suddenly seemed unfair as it was, without Letitia further burdening Clara with her own regrets on the matter. "I want you to know, Clara, that while this matter will certainly affect you, it is by no means your fault. It is my mother, you see. She is taken ill and she is in need of my assistance. I fear for her health, and I cannot in good conscience continue to abide in London when I know she is suffering so. I feel it imperative that I move closer to her, so I might care for her properly as any good daughter ought." Here Letitia inhaled, and affixing her eyes on Clara's, said, "So to that end, I have applied for another position, one in Yorkshire. This new job should allow me to spend more time with my mother, time I would not be granted if I were to remain here in London. It was a difficult decision to make. I will miss you awfully, but it was one which had to be done. There was no other alternative. I am only sorry it took me so very long to inform you of this matter." Letitia felt silent after delivering it unto Clara the skein of lies, her gaze downturned to her lap. She could hear her heart humming tremulously in her ribcage like that of a caged animal's. The warm sunlight which filtered through the oak tree above dappled the top of her auburn head, yet Letitia hardly felt it. She was rather more concerned with Clara's close proximity and with her fingers, which were still threaded through her own. Silence reigned between the pair, so vast and deep and awful, Letitia could have drowned in it. Before, with a woeful sob, Clara cried out, "Letty! Oh, Letty! You don't mean to leave me, do you?" At this, Letitia felt her heart twist in her chest. It felt as though the muscle had been gripped by an invisible hand which now was squeezing her so very tightly she feared it might burst. Trying desperately to subdue her own tears, that was a luxury she could not afford, Letitia met Clara's gaze when she replied, "That is the gist of it, yes. I will be leaving you, Clara, but please do not think this is in any way your fault." That was another lie, one so blatant it was a wonder it did not stain Letitia's deceitful tongue black. I am doing this for my mother's sake. If she were not so very unwell, I would not contemplate this. As too was that. But I have no choice. Please trying to understand. I am only acting as any dutiful daughter should. Oh yes, I appreciate that much. You have always been so good, Letty, and so incredibly kind. Those compliments, spoken without any trace of malice, made Letitia's heart ache all the more, for they felt so very undeserved. Letitia bit the inside of her cheek. Her own trickery sickened her. So beleaguered was she had half a mind to set Clara straight, to tell her in no uncertain terms that she was bad and base and wicked and did not deserve her sympathy. But Letitia knew this would only have ushered in more questions. It was better to let Clara believe she was virtue incarnate, selfless to a fault. That way they could at least part as friends. Clara could not know the truth. If she did, Letitia felt certain she would have expired from the shame of it. Letitia felt ashamed enough as it was, however, as she sat upon that bench in Hyde Park alongside her young pupil. She had to wonder whether telling the truth would have made any marked difference. How complex her own feelings were. I suppose you wouldn't want to leave me? Not if you didn't have a good reason for it, but oh, this really is sudden. Where do you plan to go? When do you plan to go, rather? In a week from now. A week? But that's so soon. I've scarcely had the time to get accustomed to your announcement, and now you're saying you mean to go so quickly? I know. I apologize, Clara, I really do. This was all very last minute, you see. My mother's illness was so sudden, and, well... No, it is all right. I understand. Your mother's health is more important than my silly feelings, and yet... Clara shook her head. Yorkshire. I scarcely know where that is. Is it very far away? It takes a good 6 days' worth of travel to get there, yes. 6 days? Oh, but you might as well be moving to India. This means I'll never be able to see you again. I suppose it does, yes. Visits will be out of the question, but I can still write to you if you wish. I will still be residing in England, you understand, not the Orient. You'll still be in England, yes, but you won't be in London. You won't be with me. Oh, Letty. Clara's pretty face twisted, and to Letitia's horror she soon discerned her lovable pupil was beginning to weep. I'll miss you. I'll miss you so, so much. Clara. Letitia squeezed Clara's fingers tightly, and as she did, she found her own emotions rupturing within her. Unable to swallow down her own misery, Letitia stared at Clara and spoke, for the first time during the last 10 minutes, the genuine truth. I will miss you too. You will? Yes, of course. I will miss you a good deal. Letitia looked once more to her lap, then squeezed her eyes shut. A few moments passed, wherein she tried to compose herself before she felt capable of speech once more. Meeting Clara's damp eyes, which shone in the green-tinted sunlight, she said, I will miss you more, in fact, than you could ever comprehend. These words seemed not enough somehow to fully encapsulate all of Letitia's feelings, yet, in her own tragic state, they were all she could offer Clara. Any further display of affection would have made her hidden emotions too embarrassingly obvious. As much as Letitia wished she could wipe away Clara's tears and embrace her slender, shaking shoulders, she did not. Welcome back, Tushy. Things have escalated. She has just told Clara that she is leaving and moving to Yorkshire, which is 6 days worth of travel to get to. She'll never see Clara again because of this. So Clara's quite upset, you see. You understand, Clara is very, very upset. Understandably so. We'll never see Clara again after we leave London. She could not afford to indulge in such moments of sentimentality. And don't worry, Tush, the VOD will go up on YouTube. You can catch up if you want to. That would only make it harder for her to draw away from Clara when their inevitable parting came. Yeah, fuck Yorkshire. All my homies hate Yorkshire. It was better, Letitia reasoned, as Clara sobbed before her to try and set some distance between them. Though they were still together physically, this would not last. In a fortnight hence, Letitia would leave London for good. Then she would never see Clara Mortimer again. I've read this story before, Tushy, and I was waiting for someone to get very, very dramatic about this. But don't worry, now you get to see the beautiful opening trailer. I do love this opening trailer so much. Now we get to know everyone in the game completely. This is Genevieve, the famous girl she's tutoring in Yorkshire. We all love Genevieve. She's such a mess. Genevieve is a disaster. She's a mess. Oh, what a beautiful opening trailer. It's so good. Miss Reed. You are Miss Reed, I presume. Welcome in, Hazel. Welcome into the dramatic lesbian hour. What? Oh yes. Well, it's been more than an hour, but you know what I mean. Letitia glanced about, disoriented. It had been a long journey from London to York, and Letitia was still reeling from its ill effects. She had travelled by carriage, and there had been numerous stops along the dusty road to admit new travellers. All told, it had taken 6 days for her to arrive at her destination. Her eventual arrival in York, however, had not been a pleasant one. Letitia had since disembarked from the carriage, but her head was pounding after her long journey, her body sore and stiff. When she closed her eyes, she could still hear the regular rumbling of the carriage's wheels and the snorting of the malcontented horses. It was now a few minutes after midday, but already Letitia felt exhausted. It was amazing how tired one could feel after days of idleness. Why, she had done nothing more strenuous than sit. Chat, famously, carriages were immensely uncomfortable to be in for long stretches of time, like old cars were. They were not comfortable at all, no matter how many pretty curtains and cushions they had in them. They were, no suspension does that. Um, so yeah, she is not in a good way. She has, after all, as we all said, the travel from London to Yorkshire takes 6 days. And she will be in a carriage the whole time, I suspect. That's going to ruin her. Letitia's fatigue had rendered her slow and stupid, and she looked at the man who had come to meet her with uncomprehending eyes. He was a stout, short man with curly red hair. He wore the livery of a coachman, complete with a top hat, but the brass buttons of his coat were straining to contain his bulk. Who was he, and how did he know her name? I apologize for my ignorance, but who might you be? Me? The man gestured to himself, then grinned. I'm Gerard Lockett, the Langley's coachman. I was sent to collect thee. Didn't Miss Ree mention it in her letter? What? Oh yes, Mr. Lockett, I see. Miss Ree had mentioned Mr. Lockett, for of course she had. Her instructions as to Letitia's journey had been exacting, written in a neat curving hand of a woman who had no time for nonsense. Take the next carriage from London to York. I will send Mr. Lockett the coachman at Hatton to collect you. If you are serious about this position, I must ask you not to tarry. The master is a particular man, and he cannot abide lateness for any reason. Letitia still had Miss Ree's letter folded up in its envelope and crumpled inside her pocket. She had touched it at irregular intervals during her arduous journey like some sort of talisman, a guard against bad luck. It was because of Miss Ree that Letitia had been unable to escape from the Mortimer family and from Clara's beautiful brown eyes. Miss Ree had done Letitia a great service, though she herself could not have known this. In permitting Letitia to work at Hatton, she had offered her not only a new job, but the salvation of her very soul. Letitia was determined to appear respectable. She did not want to disappoint Miss Ree, nor her master. How, then, could she have forgotten about Mr. Lockett? She had read the letter dozens of times. She could recite it line for line. She must have been even more exhausted than even she had thought. It is very nice to make your acquaintance, Mr. Lockett. Letitia addressed the coachman somewhat stiffly, her cheeks pink, owing to her earlier misstep. If he felt at all snubbed, Gerard didn't show it. He just laughed, revealing 2 rows of large square teeth. The pleasure's all mine, I can assure thee. It's been a while since we've had any new servants over at Hatton. It'll make for a nice change of pace. I am not a servant, I am a governess. Aye, that thee art. Forgive me, ma'am, I misspoke. We've not had a governess in Hatton for as long as I can remember. So my manners could use some polishing. Now, forgive me as for saying as much, but thou looks awful young. Does thou think thou art up to the task? God, it's hard to read his lines. I shall be just fine. Letitia squared her shoulders, her eyes narrowed. She wished that she wasn't so worn and browbeaten from her journey. Her hair, which she had pinned back, was coming loose, and her sensible skirt was badly crumpled. Letitia knew she didn't look much like a governess, and at that moment neither did she feel like one. She felt rather more like a young girl playing pretend. She just hoped that her pretences would be enough to convince Miss Ree, and Hatton's master too. Before she could convince them, however, she first had to contend with Gerard Lockett. He was only a coachman, but yet even he seemed uncertain about Letitia's suitability, a fact that he was doing little to disguise. It stung. I have experience enough dealing with children. I will not let Miss Langley run rings around me, I can promise you that much. Well, I'm glad to hear it. I hold that to that. That girl's a little she-devil, she is. You exaggerate. She is only a child. What harm can she cause? Only a child, eh? Is that what Miss Ree said? It is what I presumed upon reading her advertisement. Why else would she have need of a governess? Why else, indeed? Suppose the missus is young enough. Certainly she's immature enough. But I wonder. Jared chuckled. There was something noxious about his laughter, like swamp gas. Letitia felt certain he was laughing at her expense about something she did not know, but he did. This irritated Letitia, but more than that, it unnerved her. What in the world was so funny? But where are my manners? Thou's had a long journey and thou must be exhausted. Let me help thou with all them bags. I'll get them loaded onto the carriage and we can start making tracks. It'll be a few hours till we reach Hatton or so's I reckon, and Miss Reeve will expect us back post-haste. Right, of course. We need to travel through the marshes, don't we? Yes, indeed. Has there ever been to the marshes before, Miss Reed? I can't say that I have, no. Then they'll be in for a treat. They look beautiful, they does, on clear days like this'n. They'd be best be careful, though, as a word of warning. Jared leant in, his voice dropping to a warning whisper. The marshes can be unforgiving. There's tales of many a man that have fallen foul of the moors who've never lived to tell the tale. Well, naturally. I've read that the marshes can be quite deep, and if you fell in it would be hard to get out. Letitia tried to keep her voice calm, but it trembled all the same. When she first learned of Hatton Manor, tucked away among the marshes, it had seemed like a veritable paradise. All of Jared's ominous warnings, however, were beginning to make her wonder. Oh, that's not the worst of it, ma'am, not by half. The marshes are dangerous, yes, but there's more to fear out there than thou can see with thy eyes. Thou'd best respect the marshes if thou be living in Hatton, ma'am. And thus, mark my words, is no mere suggestion, it's a warning. It's if thou doesn't watch thyself, Miss Langley will be the least of your worries. York was 15 miles away from Beeston, which was a further 4 miles away from Hatton Manor. The journey promised to be relatively brief, around 4 hours or so. I think we'll finish up at the 2-hour mark. Just letting you all know. We will not be finishing the story today. It takes a great deal of time. It's well written. Alas, these 4 hours soon began to feel like a small infinity. Letitia was tired and sore from sitting still for so very long, and Gerard refused to stop talking. His drawling Yorkshire accent was difficult for Letitia to pass, and in her tired state she often lost the thread of what he was saying. Swept away in the tide of Jared's one-sided conversation, if it could be called as such. Letitia found herself nodding, smiling, and saying, whenever her partner paused for breath. Jared, meanwhile, seemed not to mind Letitia's unresponsiveness. Her waning interest did little to dissuade him as he launched from one story to the next, the wheels of the carriage crushing the foliage of the fen. This marsh here, ma'am, is known as Osbert's Marsh. I take it thou's not heard of Osbert before, has thee? What? Oh, no. Was he a man of some local renown? Yes, I suppose I could say that. Though his renown is far-reaching indeed. Osbert, Saint Osbert I should say, was born back in the 1200s if the stories are to be believed. A long, long time ago, before even my great-grandfather's great-grandfather was alive. Now that's something to think about, doesn't thee think? Why, yes, I suppose so. Distractedly, Letitia looked beyond the window of the carriage and softly said, I had no idea this marsh had such storied history. Storied is right, ma'am. Tales I've heard of St. Osbert since I was but a boy would fill a book. Not that I've ever had much business with those. Laughing derisively, Gerard shook his head. There's something a mite fantastical about St. Osbert's life, though, if thou were to ask me, which thou isn't, in all fairness. But the locals believe in it fervently enough. They're devout enough in their faith, though few were back in Osbert's time. Stories? Letitia, who had always been fond of a good yarn, sat up straighter, intrigued. What sort of stories? What is St. Osbert famous for? I want stories, does thee? Well then. The teacher could not see Gerard's face given their positions, but she felt certain that he was smiling. That is quite the story indeed. Would thou like to hear it? Yes, please. That is, if you would not mind. Mind? Me? Of course not. Gerard laughed again, the rumble of mirth falling from his lips as easily as storm clouds dispensed with the rain. Thou can't know me all that well, ma'am. If thou feels need to ask such a question. Everyone around here knows how much I love to talk. I can't be persuaded away from it half the time, especially when I've had a pint or two. Titia flinched at this. And while Gerard could not have seen it, he must have guessed at her reticence, for he hastened to reassure her. Don't worry then, ma'am. I'm sober as anything right now. I wouldn't want to embroil either of us in a mishap. Miss Rowe would eviscerate me, she would, if I steered the carriage into the marshes. And quite rightly, too. Titia muttered this, to which Gerard guffawed. Quite rightly indeed. So about Osbert. Yes, what about him? I can't vouch for the credibility of said stories. They occurred more than 5 centuries ago, you understand. But they make for interest in telling. I hope they make for interest in hearing too, though the subject matter might be a bit rich for thy blood. I am sure I can cope. I am far too practical a woman to be frightened by folk tales, Mr. Lockett. Ah, now you sound like Miss Rye. You two, I wager, might have a fair bit in common, though thy face is much fairer. Thank you. And as for St. Osbert? Oh, St. Osbert indeed. Tales of his exploits are rife round here. Many of the folks over in Beeston are true believers, though I've always been a bit of a skeptic. The credibility. That sounds a fancy word, doesn't it? Of these tales is dubious, but please keep in mind, ma'am, many of us have heard these stories since we were children. I might scoff and turn up your nose at what I'm about to relate as a woman of reason, from London no less. But we folk are of a simpler nature. We take our saints seriously round these parts. Yes, and? The teacher, who had at this point in conversation was growing impatient, leant forward, her lips pursed. What did the St. Osbert do? Oh, any number of things, ma'am. Might be easier to ask what he didn't do back in the day, what with all his soothsaying and prophesying. So he was an oracle? In a manner of speaking, aye. St. Osbert grew up around the marshes and Beeston, as it were, and from his blessed boyhood he is beset by any number of visions. The story goes that on his 8th birthday the soon-to-be saint was visited by a host of our own God's heavenly angels, who told him of his own mother's death. And? More intrigued than she would like to admit, Letitia tried to focus upon the thread of Gerard's conversation, which, above the din of the horses and the creaking of the carriage, she seemed likely to lose. Did she succumb? Aye, that she did, in childbirth no less. It was fair common at the time for mothers to pass away as such, but still, must have come as an awful shock, poor mite. Yes, I can imagine. Poor mite indeed. Titia muttered her words of sympathy, though they were half-hearted. She could not feel any genuine pity towards Sir Osbert, not with the man. If he had ever truly had existed and was not a collective imagining, remained such an unknown. Had he truly lived in Beeston as the story stated, he would have inhabited a very different world to Letitia's. One where the fear of God and of all his infernal angels trumped all forms of scientific reasoning. Modern science, as now it stood, had been a very different beast in the early annals of England's history, for so much of this world had been unknown. There had been no Darwin, not then, to demystify mankind's origins, contentious though his discoveries were, nor any Newton to expound upon the theories which governed earthly forces. In the absence of such knowledge, mankind had founded, all drifting, as the carriage now was, through the moors. All and sundry thought it mere coincidence back then that young Osbert had correctly foretold the date of his mother's death, Dun and Beeston took it too seriously, for, as I said, women dropped dead in childbirth all the time back then, like flies they were. Osbert's guess was an unusually good one, yes, but it wasn't so very remarkable. Wasn't nearly enough to convince a soul the young lad was, in fact, in communion with God and all his holy angels. Until... This ominous until, coupled with a string of ellipses, made Letitia frown. She knew Gerard was humming his address up to enthrall her, embellishing it as a playwright might punch up his dialogue, with witty ripostes and thick, liberally applied layers of dramatic irony. Letitia was unsure whether she appreciated his attempts at entertainment, not when she felt so weary. Yet still she found herself intrigued. Drawn into Gerard's dialogue, Letitia responded with a query of her own. Let me guess, St. Osbert was visited with yet another vision. Aye, indeed, you catch on quickly. Gerard chuckled. The sound was deep and rich, and it seemed to echo throughout the marshes. Uncomfortably loud, even above the regular snorting of the horses, and screeching of the carriage's wheels against the uneven country ground. Osbert was granted another vision, or so the stories go, several years later when he was 12 years of age. This vision pertained to his older brother, and his death, a drowning out over in yonder moors. Osbert told his brother about his vision as you would, but was met only with derision. His brother fair ignored his warning, and alas, he too perished? Aye, he did. Drowned, or so the stories go, in the fens when he was out fishing for eels. An awful tragedy to be sure, but preventable perhaps. If only his brother had listened, he may have avoided this fate. And what came of this tragedy? Did his family finally believe in Osbert's visions? The villagers too? I might have to stop here, chat. I'm feeling the brain is getting quite heavy. But I've had fun. We've made a bit of progress, and I'm quite pleased with that. If you want to catch up on anything you missed, please do check out the YouTube channel, which is posted on my main page in the About section. I have all my social medias linked there. Thank you for showing up, Hazel. I very do appreciate you joining us today, and I hope to come back soon. We will save. Bye bye, Dodo. I hope to see you again. It was lovely having you join us today. I hope you all have a good day. Rest well. Remember to drink lots of water and eat proper food. I say proper. What I mean is eat filling food. Food that fills your stomach. And try and get some stretches in. If you can't exercise, do some walking on the spot. That's always good. And I'll see you soon. It's 1 AM. My day will end soon, but thank you. Oh, that's fair, Dodo. I hope you still have a good one and rest well. Bye bye all.